I'm bringing on Mr. Ross World. Mr. Ross
What's
World,
going
welcome
on,
to
Ricky?
the show.
What's
I'm
going on,
chilling.
brother? How you doing?
I'm loving life and living a dream. How about yourself? Thanks for that 50
I'm doing
spot,
great.
brother.
Thanks for having me, man. And no, I won't be ambushing you anytime soon.
All right. Last brother who came on the show to hook me up with $50 and he was ready to give me those gotcha questions. Talking about let's debate.
Not at all. I don't even have any questions. We're just gonna have a discussion. We're gonna agree, disagree, but we're gonna move the conversation forward.
Yes, sir. So tell us a little bit about yourself or your channel.
I have Financial Literacy 101. I have, around 15,000 subscribers. I'm still trying to build it, but I give financial information as well as political insight and commentary. This give people a different perspective what they're probably not used to hearing. But nonetheless, I will say that I'm pro-Black and I'm pro-progression. And by history, Black people are conservative by nature. A lot of us would not like to believe that, but we're conservative, and conservatives is most related to who? The Republican Party. Am I stating that I'm a Republican? Not at all. I'm just stating what the factual history is.
So what you just done, if I had to put white skin on you, if I took your melanin out of you, you would sound like a Fox News watching Wall Street banker, conservative.
Okay.
So let's talk about something real quick. What's your background as far as like broadcasting? Because I see you got an impressive number of followers on your page.
I just started on YouTube maybe about 3 or 4 years ago. I pretty much started off doing probably like one show a week or something like that. And my channel from Ross World was essentially, I didn't know what I was going to do on YouTube. So I did everything. I did travel, I did workout, I did Black history, I did finances. So I just took whatever genre that I was working on that the people actually wanted to hear from me, and that was finances and politics.
Okay.
And my background is 20 years serving in the military, prior Marine as well as prior Army soldier.
Marine Corps, huh?
Yes,
Simplify, do or die. Oorah, oorah.
Yes, sir. When 9/11 first hit, I was stationed at Marine Corps 8th and 9th Marine Barracks in Washington, D.C., where I'm originally from. And I had stop laws. They didn't send me over, but I got out, did a civilian job for a couple of months, didn't like it. I went back in. And so as I'm going back to the Marine Corps, in some sort of a depot, they were like, hey, this, it was the Marine Corps, Air Force, Army, etc. And so I was going back and they were saying like, hey, where are you going? I said, I'm going back into the Marine Corps. They said, well, you already did, Marine Corps boot camp. I said, yeah, I did, 4 years in the Marine Corps. I got out and now I'm going back in. They said, well, if you already done Marine Corps boot camp, you don't have to do boot camp with the Army, and we're going to give you a sign-on bonus. The Army gave me $10,000 right to enlist. So at that point, I became a capitalist. I wasn't even worried about I was worried about the money. I was like, hey, so I joined the Army after that.
Lisa D says, thank you for your services.
Thank you, Lisa.
In this channel, we respect our vets. You know what I'm saying? Vets always get, royalty here. What's your opinion on the war in Europe?
Well, my first opinion is that it really has nothing to do with America. Well, it really doesn't have anything to do with America, first and foremost. And I think, once again, we are meddling in other people's business. We understand this is about political and this is about power. Regardless of what Putin says, it's about, white supremacy, it's about skinheads, it's about neo-Nazism. It's about power. And what we need to understand is the prior history to the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Now, first and foremost, what people don't understand is that Ukraine was one of the founding fathers of the USSR, right? And I got some resources here that we can essentially look at. And I also got a video clip that I would love to share with some of your viewers. It's about 12 minutes, but I want to kind of look at the 3 minutes because they have a Nigerian guy actually explaining very explicitly the history and what's the current conditions of that conflict, right? Because that's a lot of things that Americans are not understanding. We're looking at the major media corporations, and of course, they're the ones who control the narrative, right? Whatever you are subjected to, whatever they project, they continue to give you those things each and every day about what they want you to understand, what they want you to comprehend, and what they want you to believe.
Okay. And that's the point that I've been trying to make since the summer of 2020, because I really, to be honest with you, I wasn't political until the summer of 2020. I voted for the best candidate. I kind of left it alone. You know what I'm saying? Okay. I was that guy that would defend Trump, in the work spot, you know what I'm saying, at the office. I mean, because these conversations would get heated up. In the 1960s with the space race, they used the racism that was in America to compete with America and have a better look on the world stage. They said they were going to send the first black man into space, and they found him in Cuba. But yeah, so I really wasn't all of that political before now. And then the summer of 2020, I saw how Western world media was brainwashing people. You had
absolutely.
You had people on the right and you had people on the left, and they were pitted against each other. Each side had their own prejudices. I won't say racist, but they had their own prejudices, and they, tweaked it a little bit, and they got inside of people's heads, and those prejudices turned into racism from black and white. And it just kind of blew up, and everybody was mad at each other. And I was just like, I got to do something about this, because the last thing I need on my watch is a freaking race war breaking out. You see what I'm saying? And they were working on that. And I think that was something they tried to do, and it failed miserably. But
I mean, we're the men in the middle. I mean, left or right, I know people have their own political ideologies and what they believe. But at the end of the day, we are political pawns, and we're being moved by both sides of the political parties here in America. I mean, this is why back in the 1930s and 40s, black people started to come out with their own news. But of course, that got destroyed by white tyranny. They don't want the truth to be told to us, because for some reason, it seems as though that a lot of, black Americans are easily manipulated and coerced by the media, most likely, news like Fox News, NBC, ABC, CNN, all of them. Essentially, you really have to go to local news to get real news, unfortunately. And now people are now coming to YouTube, Facebook, and other social media platforms to get, essentially concrete news that they can actually understand, comprehend, and understand it's not a bunch of rhetoric that people are getting paid under the table.
The melanated community had their own newspapers. The Christian white people, they had their own newspapers.
Yes, sir.
Talking from their perspective. And when COINTELPRO came into existence, they trashed all of those smaller newspapers.
Indeed.
And, they did that on purpose, because, I mean, I was looking at some of the articles in some of these newspapers on all sides. It was accurate. Like, it was like the who, the what, the when, the why, and the where. Okay. And the white Christian newspapers at the time, they was preaching from a more Christian aspect of things. And they didn't, put color on it. They were still just the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why. The only papers that survived in the mainstream, and I won't say mainstream, the underground scene, was The Final Call by the Nation of Islam.
The Nation of Islam.
And they still sell that newspaper
today. But I kind of want to go a little more in depth about this whole Ukraine-Russia thing, and I just kind of want to give context. Do you mind sharing my screen over here so the family can see this?
All right.
So very quickly, and I hate to read to people. I'm not trying to demean the situation by reading, but nonetheless, it says here that a fully independent Ukraine emerged only late in the 20th century after long periods of successful domination by Poland, Lithuania, Russia, and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And it's stating here that Ukraine had experienced a brief period of independence in the 1980s and 1920s. But portions of the Western Ukraine were ruled by Poland, Romania, Czechoslovakia in the period between the two world wars, and Ukraine thereafter became part of the Soviet Union as the Ukraine Soviet Socialist Republic. Okay, and I'll leave that other part just off, which I highlighted. But I think that, Ricky, is the meat and potatoes that a lot of times we don't go and research. We may look up at a lot of things on, Wikipedia and things of that nature. That essentially Ukraine was one of the founding fathers of the USSR, the Soviet Union, so to speak. And so Putin is actually arguing stating that Ukraine is not a country, that is a territory or a state of Russia. Now, we all know that Russia is the largest country in the world by landmass. We understand that America has a larger population, but Russia, it has the largest landmass of any country. And they are essentially, most of their land, of course, uninhabitable, but nonetheless, they have a lot of political power, and their armies is one of the strongest in the world. Now, I know there's a lot of information coming out that Putin's army, the Red Army, quote unquote, wasn't expecting the Ukrainian army to resist the bombardment of missiles and mortars and all sorts of combative fire. Then they're resisting. I'm like, America has given Ukraine already $650 million to support that, and that is why Putin has threatened to essentially use his nuclear arsenal, which is the second largest, second to America. And guess who have the third largest nuclear arsenal? Do you know? China, right? And China is kind of like, we don't want to get involved, but what people don't understand this, a lot of Indian students were also in Ukraine, but India is not speaking out against Russia because India is also in bed with Russia as well. So if World War III was to happen, I'm speculating here, this is me speculating, this is kind of my bias. What would happen if Russia, China, and India formed together to essentially fight NATO? I mean, what would happen there with all that nuclear power? And this is why we're talking about the nuclear holocaust. A lot of people are now researching the distance of nuclear missiles. What we need to understand is that Russia is only 5,200 miles from California. They may not even toy with Alaska, right? If they want to essentially destroy our oil reserves, they can probably do that. But they will probably just try to destroy California to cause mass hysteria, right? And one of Russia missiles that has the same capacity and payload of a nuclear missile can travel 11,000 miles, just to put things into perspective.